Alright everybody, so a couple of days have passed since my initial review of Halloween 2018. 3 days have passed since I saw the film. I saw it very late in the day, or in the evening on Wednesday. It was basically Thursday morning when I went to see it. And now Saturday afternoon, which is when I'm recording this, I went to see it earlier today with my kids. So I put some distance between my first viewing experience and my second viewing experience. Wanted to kind of let my thoughts marinate a bit. I did 2 different spoiler discussions on other channels. I did one with CP at Willie Screedia, formerly Will I Like It Reviews. You can check that out. We go in depth with it on our thoughts. I also did a spoiler talk on The Horror Show with 5 or 6 different guys, so go check out The Horror Show. We had a varying thoughts on this film. 1 or 2 of us loved it. 1 or 2 of us was on the middle of it. A couple of us hated it. So a lot of different thoughts came out on that one. But I wanted to do my own standalone spoiler review, just talking solely on my thoughts on this film. Giving you guys kind of more insight into why I really liked certain things, why I didn't like certain things. Did a second viewing change up or down my rating of this movie at all? Has anything changed since my first viewing whatsoever? I'll answer that question. Slightly. This is not a movie where I went to see it a second time and all of a sudden the lights turned on and I saw all these things I didn't see before. It's not a movie where I saw it the second time and things stood out to me that just really put me off. I really stand by all the things I said in my spoiler-free review. The only change that I will say is that I think I enjoyed it slightly more my second time because the things that I did not like about this movie, I was expecting them. And it didn't hit me like a brick in the face, like, where the fuck did that come from, like it did the first time that I watched it. So my enjoyment level of Halloween 2018 did go up slightly on my second viewing, but I hold strong on all the things that I loved about the movie and all the things that I did not love about the movie. But I'm gonna get in detail with those now. Now, first and foremost, I got called out by a couple of my loving subscribers for not mentioning this, and I have no excuse whatsoever for why I forgot to talk about the fucking score of this movie in my spoiler-free review. I think I was so focused on story and the characters that I totally negated thoughts about John Carpenter's return and John Carpenter's new updated score of Halloween. And it's awesome. It's very good. It's different enough to give it a new modern vibe. I hate saying this because I bitch about it all the time, but there's actually some Stranger Things score, like synthetic score kind of feels throughout some of the scenes in this movie. Whoa. Which in itself was kind of inspired by John Carpenter, so it's you know, it's in that little world of it's all kind of similar, but the score for this movie I enjoyed very much, so I just needed to get that out there. So, I'm not going to go chronologically with this film, because I feel like I've already done that a couple of times on the other spoiler reviews that I've did with these couple other channels. I'm just going to go in depth with my thoughts, starting with the things that I did like. Like I said with Michael, this is the best Michael since Nick Castle, I think. Over time, especially if James Jude Courtney returns for the inevitable sequels this movie is going to get, he's got a damn good shot for overtaking Nick Castle as the best Myers. He really does, because he has that perfect mix between the creepiness and the almost supernatural, motionless, motiveless version of Michael that I love Nick Castle for, that's so iconic, with the brutality and the scariness of Tyler Mane's Tyler Mane's Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie films. He's like the perfect mix between those, which is the type of Michael Myers that I want. If you can nail both, if you got a Michael that's scary because he's supernatural and he's just motiveless and he's the embodiment of evil, but he'll also fuck you up beyond belief and make a goddamn jack-o'-lantern out of your hollowed out skull, can't get any better than that. So Michael in this is awesome. The kills, to me, are the perfect mix between cutaway kills where you just see the aftermath and kills that are right in front of your face. Because the first movie is actually rather tame as far as the kills. Like, they'll show you, but it's not like brutality, you know what I mean? It's not like the Rob Zombie films where it just lingers on it. It's almost borderline torture porn style kills. This movie finds a mix in that. You get to see some kills straight on, like the bathroom kill in the trailer, the one-shot sequence, or what seems like a one-shot sequence, I'm sure it was multiple takes, where he gets the hammer, bludgeons the chick to death off screen, and then it just shows her like bloodied corpse there as he drops the hammer, grabs the knife, walks right next door, grabs the chick, slams her head down, and stabs the knife right through her throat, right in front of your eyes, throws her down, and then moves on. That right there, that one sequence tells you right there the perfect balance. We don't see the chick get her head bludgeoned in, but it doesn't take away from the scene and the brutality and the scariness of it. And then immediately after, we see a knife go right through a chick's face. Perfection. Loved the kills in this. Give you just enough brutality to where it's not like really getting gratuitous, but it also has some creativity and some modern age gore that is necessary. You're not going to be able to get away with what they did in the 1978 film in 2018 with these tame style kills. It's just not going to work. So I think they nailed that. And the character of Myers, as far as like the psychology of the character and the story that they kind of bring with him about kind of being drawn to his mask, the mask kind of sets him off again, and him not really being spelled out what his motivations are in this movie, just like the original. Like, you can debate with fans all day long. Was he pursuing Laurie Strode? Was he not pursuing Laurie Strode? Was it just a matter of convenience that they met again? Or was he actually kind of drawn to her throughout the events of this movie? It's kind of up for debate. It's a little bit of a gray area, and that's what they should do. Because even though I'm a little bit disappointed with how they didn't go as far and as unique as they could have with retconning everything in this franchise and making them not siblings anymore, which is an angle I've always wanted them to go in, there's enough ambiguity in there with Myers' motivations that it's tolerable for me. So I like the fact that it's not spelled out one way or the other, really. It's kind of up for debate. Moving on to Jamie Lee Curtis's character. You find her at the beginning of this movie, and she's basically a hermit. She lives in seclusion in the woods in Haddonfield, Illinois, with security gates, floodlights everywhere. She's got trap doors, she's got security doors, she's got a whole basement full of guns. This chick has been preparing, like Sarah Connor in Terminator 2, for the return of the evil. And it's to the point where she's lost her family. She lost Judy Greer, her daughter, when she was like 12 or 13 years old. She's been through 2 marriages. She doesn't really have much of a relationship with her granddaughter, but they both kind of long for it. And her obsession is that one night in 1978. The events of the first John Carpenter film have defined her entire life. Much like it did in H2O, but a very different way. In H2O, she was kind of trying to run away from it. She was trying to forget it. She was trying to hide from it. She did the fake death, changed her name and everything. This Laurie Strode is kind of like the other side of the coin. She's not trying to hide from shit. She's just trying to prepare for it. She's waiting for the motherfucker to come back, and when he comes back, he's going to have his hands full. That's the type of Laurie Strode we get in this. There are aspects of the H2O Laurie Strode that I like more. I think she has a little bit more of a dynamic in that movie. I think her character's a little bit more round and a little bit more, has a little bit more depth to her in H2O. But this Jamie Lee Curtis is certainly more of a badass. So she's a little more scaled down as far as the range of her character, but it's just a different type of Laurie Strode. So if they just gave us the same exact H2O, it wouldn't work for this movie, but being a fan of H2O and being the fact that this movie is going for a lot of the same things that H2O went for, that comparison is fair. So I really like Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie. Not quite as much as I did in H2O, but I liked her a lot. She's certainly the heart and soul of the film. You get into the other characters, and like I said in my spoiler-free review, I really like the granddaughter. I like the fact that she has this long for a relationship with Laurie Strode. There's a little bit of tension between her and her mom because there's so much tension between Judy Greer and Laurie Strode. So that dynamic there about her trying to bypass her mother and even Laurie Strode kind of bypassing Judy Greer to a degree to have this relationship, I like it. I think there's enough complicated stuff there. There's enough mirror between her character and what Laurie Strode was in 1978 before this stuff came upon her with Michael Myers that it's interesting there. You even get that great callback scene where she's sitting in class, looks out the window, and where in 1978 Michael was staring at Laurie, Laurie is outside staring at her. Another great little mirror image callback that we get in this film that I will be talking about throughout, that anytime they do that, it's gigantic fan service and it makes so much of a dynamic in this movie where it enhances the scene going on. It's just like the scene later on in the movie in the third act where Laurie falls over the balcony, Michael looks over and she's gone, and you get that cool little musical cue that mimics whenever he was gone in the last shot of 1978 film. Awesome stuff. Now let's talk about Judy Greer. So now that we're talking about characters. Judy Greer, I think, was horribly miscast in this movie. She's never been an actress that I've liked. I've never seen a movie with her in it that I liked her in it. Maybe I just haven't seen that movie. But what I've seen of this actress, I don't think she's a very good actress. And Halloween 2018, it follows suit with that. There are scenes in this movie that literally feel like she is reading the script off of a page. There's just no life to her line delivery. And I don't have a problem with the character whatsoever. The complicated relationship between mother and daughter about, you know, all the shit that Laurie did to her daughter, trying to prepare her, trying to make her wait for Michael's return, all that stuff is great. It's just the actress that brought that character to life that turned me off. There's a scene in this movie where it gives a flashback after Jamie Lee Curtis comes into the little National Honor Society party and is emotional wreck, and they have to kind of send her off, and then Judy Greer stands there with her daughter and says, "I never told you about my childhood." And then whoosh, you go to flashback and she's like, "I learned how to shoot a gun when I was 8, and I had nightmares about the cage in the basement, and all of her paranoia and psychosis has projected onto me." The way that she reads her lines is just robotic. And because her face is not on screen, I would not be surprised if she said that whole speech into a microphone behind the fucking camera. I just don't like her in this movie. There's one scene in the third act when she's pointing a gun and she's acting like she's emotionally breaking down. "Mom, I'm sorry, I can't do it." And then Michael comes into view and she goes, "Gotcha," pow, and shoots him. That is badass. That is the only spot in this movie where I was like, okay, you're gonna redeem her character, that's cool. But everything leading up to that, did not like Judy Greer at all. And I'll talk about the third act with her as well. But her husband is another character that I feel like could have been taken out of this movie completely. He's one of those characters that's in here just for comedic relief, and the comedic writing in this movie is very poor. There's one scene that I think the comedy is halfway decent when the blonde babysitter is having that conversation with the young kid and he's clipping his toenails. That was a funny scene. I don't even like the scenes afterwards with that kid though. Like whenever he's making jokes while the chick's getting stabbed, that ruins the tension of the scene. But talking about the husband character, I think the movie would have been even more successful as far as characters if Judy Greer was a single mom. Like all of her complicatedness scares away a guy just much like Laurie Strode scared away 2 husbands. Because one of the first lines that this guy delivers is when he's putting together mousetraps and one snaps and he goes, "Oh man, I got peanut butter all over my penis," and walks away. I have a hard time believing that Danny McBride did not put that line in there. There's 3 writers in this movie that we know of, so I'll be fair and say whoever wrote that line, horrible. And that character, that's the tone of this character throughout the rest of this movie, is just kind of, oh man, it's like he's totally in a different movie. He's not necessarily cracking jokes the whole movie, but just he doesn't belong. He's just as off to me as Judy Greer, and he's inconsequential to the film, because in the third act when Michael strangles his ass, not one single member of this family, Laurie Strode, Judy Greer, or the granddaughter, have any reaction whatsoever to the fact that the dad is not there in the fucking house anymore, or the fact that he's probably dead. Nothing. Even when they leave the house after the ending, nobody goes to check on this motherfucker. He's inconsequential to this movie. You could take him out, and I guarantee you this movie would be exactly the same. And that's not good writing. Then you get the Dr. Sartain character. I hate the character. I said it in my other review, I said fuck this character, and watching it a second time, I still think that he is just like the dad. You could remove him from this movie completely, and the movie would be better for it. I actually think the movie would be stronger if all of the things that they tried to make this doctor twist explain, because you get to the third act, you get the doctor twist where out of nowhere he pulls out this little knife, he stabs the lieutenant, Will Patton's character, in order to keep Michael alive. And then it's revealed that he has orchestrated all these events. He let the podcasters come in and set him off. He orchestrated the bus crash, which they didn't show, but it's basically implied that he orchestrated the escape because he wants Michael out killing so that he can study the evil. And now he is going to be the one that takes Michael to Laurie Strode. All of those plot points you could have gotten rid of while enhancing the character of Jamie Lee Curtis and enhancing her screen time by making her mistakenly cause the bus crash. If you would have had the scene when she is drunk, waiting for this bus, and she starts to emotionally break down, if they would have showed the bus driving along, and out of nowhere her fucking truck swipes it or does something and causes the bus crash, and she tries to kill Michael maybe, but somebody gets in the way. I don't know exactly how the scene would play out, but somehow she causes that bus crash. And Michael gets away either with her truck or something. Maybe it's the same scene as like when the kid was out there and she's out there with her rifle and the flashlight and Michael goes behind her, gets in the truck and leaves, and she fucks up and now she's the one that causes the carnage that ensues for the next 2 acts. How much more emotionally satisfying would something like that have been? And anybody that dies of consequence in this movie is now something else that she has to deal with, a part of her psychotic kind of PTSD sense from the events of '78. Now she has even more baggage and even more complication as a character. And you don't have this weird twist with this doctor that's unneeded. I do like the kind of the idea of what they were going for with this doctor, about somebody that has just the same level of obsession that Loomis had, but while Loomis was trying to contain and kill the evil, this guy just wants to set it free and study it. That's interesting, but it's all about execution, and in my opinion, they executed that horribly in this movie. I swear to God, that doctor is one of the biggest things in this movie that held it back for me. It's almost an entire letter grade for what they did with the doctor alone, because they don't even follow through with the twist. The dude kills Will Patton. Ha ha ha, you get the mustache twirling reveal, I've been the villain this entire time. He puts on the Michael Myers mask, stands up in front of the car, pulls Michael Myers' body to the car, make room for my patient, puts him in the back seat, and then takes the mask off and throws it in the back. That whole sequence is like, what the fuck is going on here? Even if you enjoy the movie, I can't see 85 to 90% of the people seeing this for the first time going through that sequence and not going, what the fuck? No, Dr. Sartain, leave. Now let's talk about the other characters in the movie surrounding the granddaughter, because I really do like the granddaughter. Like I've said in my initial review, that if my assumption was correct walking into the movie that we were going to be left with the granddaughter as our continuing character, our new Laurie Strode, I was fine with that. I actually liked her. I thought she was a good actress. I thought that she had enough qualities like the old Laurie Strode, but enough badassness and a little bit more grit to her that I liked her. But her friends in the movie, not really so much the blonde friend, because I think she was fine, the babysitter friend that gets killed pretty quickly, but more so her boyfriend and the weird, awkward friend that kind of hangs around. Those two characters I didn't like at all. The boyfriend character is, again, one of those characters that is just inconsequential to this film. You get a scene in the diner where they're talking about, or the dinner table, wherever the fuck they're at the National Honor Society celebration, and they're having this long dialogue scene about the dance and about how his dad used to smoke weed with the Judy Greer's husband, and they're talking about the whole Bonnie and Clyde thing, and they're having their little gender swap costume, 2018 PC. And then you get to the dance, or you have the high school scene where they're talking about the costumes, and then you get to the dance, and they're dancing around, they're having a good time, they're taking pictures, and then the granddaughter walks away for a minute, and he starts kissing some random chick that we don't even know, and then they have this weird, awkward exchange of two characters where she's basically pissed off and he's trying to relax. Well, you know, actually she was just kind of whispering in my ear, so you ain't got to be a baby about it. And then he takes her phone and throws it in a bowl of pudding. All of that, all of the plot in the dinner table talking about the dance, all the plot in the high school talking about the dance, all the dance itself, the fight, the weird love triangle shit, the fucking bowl of mayo chup, as CP called it, all of that just to create a scenario why the granddaughter is walking out of the party, not really by herself, but with one person without a phone. You're telling me there couldn't have been a better way to make her just be outside while Michael is killing without a phone, without all of that weird shit? And again, kind of script writing issues that I have problems with is that. So the boyfriend character we never see again, inconsequential to the film, could have taken him out completely. You get the weirdo friend, who's one of the better kills and one of the better sequences in this, as far as Michael Myers goes, where they have this shortcut through this gated house, and he tries to kiss her because he loved her all along, which I thought was obvious, but whatever. He falls down, she tells him to fuck off, starts walking away, and he has this long dialogue where he's like, hey, come on, man, you know, I was drunk at the party, and I had all these hot chicks kind of grinding on me, and they messed up my head. Come on, please. They were feeding me guacamole in all these sexy ways. Oh, man. And he turns around and he sees Michael Myers, and he's like, oh, sorry, Mr. So-and-so, you know, just wanted to kind of have a pretty girl walking through with this, you know, this shortcut, and you ever had a girl that you couldn't have but you wanted so bad? All right, man, I'm just going to peace out. I'm sorry, you know. What? And then the lights go off, the floodlights from the motion sensors, and he's gone. And then all of a sudden he stands up and Michael's so much closer to him. And he's like, oh, hey, man, you know, I'm trying to leave, bro. Like, I'm on the way out, man. Again, dialogue, guys. The sequence is awesome. The kill is awesome. The floodlights thing with Michael kind of teleporting in the shadows. Awesome. 100% badass Michael Myers. But that dialogue just, it's cringeworthy to me. And maybe some people give it a pass, and that's fine. But when I hear it, I'm just like, God damn, man, this is rough fucking dialogue writing. So you get this really cool kill. You know, he gets stabbed in the back, gets impaled through the bottom of his fucking chin on this gate, and now the granddaughter knows Michael Myers back. She starts hauling ass. So that's pretty much it as far as characters that I remember, but that's where I am as far as the characters I really liked and the characters that I feel like shouldn't have even been in this movie, and they really have no point. And they just really don't really add anything to the movie, and they even kind of take away from the movie to a degree, and you could have taken them out and replaced them with something better. Now let's get into the ending, because the ending is the biggest thing that kind of soured me when I walked out of the theater. There was things that were bugging me throughout the runtime, like the forced humor and the characters and even some of the story decisions they made, but the ending was what kind of sealed the deal with me being very sour walking out of this movie. So you get the whole third act, which is awesome. Like, it's basically the same kind of effect we had at the third act of H2O. Finally, Laurie versus Michael, badass versus serial killer. Let's see how this plays out. And from the time that Michael shows up to the house, it's awesome. Actually, I'm going to backpedal a little bit because there's a scene that I need to talk about too with the banh mi sandwich that's immediately preceding this. It's right after the Dr. Sartain twist, and it's right before the third act gets awesome. But you have these two cops that are having this long conversation, which Emily from Emily's Adventures in Horrorland apparently dubbed like a Tarantino scene, which is brilliant in my mind because this is exactly how this scene feels. You know how Tarantino can insert these weird, like long ass scenes of dialogue that have nothing to do with anything that's going on. Sometimes they're pop culture references or anything like that, but Tarantino makes it flow. Tarantino makes it one of the best parts of the movie. This feels like the movie slams on the fucking brakes and you just have to sit here with these two cops explaining the difference between a banh mi sandwich and any other sandwich. And they go, oh man, have you ever had a banh mi sandwich? Well, it's actually this Vietnamese type of French baguette. And it doesn't really matter what's inside the sandwich because banh mi really just references to the bread on the outside of the sandwich. And because I'm such an awesome partner of yours, I had the Vietnamese restaurant make you your own peanut butter and jelly banh mi sandwich. And then you get the other guy and he's like, no man, I brought my own lunch. Well, what'd you bring? I brought this. It's a homemade brownie and some chocolate pudding. Oh man, that's what a 5-year-old would make if he made his own lunch. That whole section right there. Take that fucking scene out of this movie. What the hell was that? I digress. Third act. You get to the third act, Laurie, Michael, Judy Greer's in the little panic room basement. The fucking husband's out for the count immediately. Who cares? Jamie Lee Curtis versus Michael in this entire third act sequence at this fortress of her house is awesome. From the point where he busts his hands through the window and holds her up and pulls her up where she's like 6 inches off of the ground and she grabs the shotgun and blows his fucking fingers off. Badass. When Michael gets into the house and he's bleeding off of his hand and Judy Greer and Jamie Lee Curtis are in the basement waiting for him to find him. Then she goes out and decides to take him on and just keep Judy Greer safe if nothing else. And you've got this little chase kind of throughout the house where Michael kind of leaves almost like a trap for Jamie Lee Curtis where everywhere she goes, it feels like Michael's hiding there. And another kind of very clever callback to 1978 with all these little closet drawboard style doors with all the different wooden slats. And that to me, every single time she pointed at one of those, I was like, she's gonna bust through it just like he did in 1978, like the closet scene. Didn't quite go out that way, but every single time they showed that, she kicks it open, Michael's not there, kicks open another one, ooh, Michael's not there. Then you get the room, which has all of like the non-blown apart mannequins that she uses for her target practice. And this was one of the most tense scenes in the movie because it's all in darkness. Again, camera work and cinematography that I praise in my spoiler-free review. Perfection in this. She's got the flashlight, she's got her rifle, looking around, and you're on the edge of your seat because you know Michael's coming out at some point. Like, he's gonna come out of nowhere. Keeps panning past these mannequins. She decides to investigate over here, and right here, boom, Michael Myers comes at her. Awesome. They fight, they scuffle, she pulls out a knife, bites his fucking hand, grabs him by the eyes. She is not taking his shit. Awesome stuff. Throws her off the fucking balcony, boom. And I was like, oh, please, please tell me they're gonna do it. Michael Myers looks over, she's still there. The granddaughter finally shows up at the house. Oh shit, now she's there. She doesn't know Michael's there. Michael listens for her. Looks over again, Jamie Lee Curtis, gone. You get that awesome musical cue and I'm like, yes, they fucking did it. That is awesome. I'm hyped at this point. She gets back into the house. The granddaughter is down in the panic room with Judy Greer. Michael starts taking off the little island, trying to bust through to get to this panic room. Finally busts it off. Judy Greer has her moment that kind of redeems her character, where she's got her little rifle from a kid, or her childhood, that's kind of got her, oh my God, I gotta do this, get back, and then he's just waiting for Michael to show up in the doorway, and she starts breaking down, Mom, help us, Mom, I can't do it, I'm sorry, I can't do it, and then Michael just kind of steps into view, and she's like, gotcha, pow, and shoots him, and doesn't really kill him, misses, shoulder clips him again, but that scene was like, all right, Judy Greer, let's get more of that, please. Jamie Lee Curtis comes out of the shadows, just like Michael Myers comes out of the shadows in that classic scene in 1978, one of my favorite scenes of this franchise, where his mask just slowly comes into view. It's a lot quicker, but she comes into view, happy Halloween, Michael. Stabs the fuck out of him, knocks him down the stairs, the two women come up, he grabs Judy Greer, they're all struggling, the granddaughter grabs the knife, she joins the party, starts stabbing and slashing at Michael, he falls down, they slam the fucking thing shut, turns out it's not a panic room, it's a trap for Michael. Jamie Lee Curtis flips some switches, and all around the house are these little gas pipes with a lit match next to them, or some kind of a burner next to them, and they're about to light this motherfucker on fire. Throws a flare down, starts the fire, all the while Michael's just staring up at her, and flames are starting to engulf around behind him. And they leave the house, they get in the back of this truck that just happened to be driving by. The camera pans down on the knife in the granddaughter's hand. Cut. Is blue balls a movie term? Because it should be after that ending. When that thing came up, Halloween, and I knew that was it. There's no more story. There's not going to be a post-credit scene. This isn't Marvel. I left cold. Ice fucking cold from this movie. Because that ending was totally unsatisfying to me. Most of the ending was great. The fights, the Judy Greer thing, everybody beating the fuck out of Michael, all that shit is great. But the ending just feels like it has no weight to me. You have all of this complicated relationship between Laurie Strode, her daughter, her granddaughter, between the granddaughter and the mother, all this complicated history between these three women. And the best ending you can give us is they just embrace each other. It's a nice little happy ending, and Michael presumably dies for what, the 8th or 9th fucking time in this franchise? Think about it. The best endings in this franchise, and I think all Halloween fans, no matter how big or small, will agree on this. What are the best endings in this franchise? The 1978 ending, where Michael gets away. Halloween 4, where Michael doesn't necessarily get away, but the evil wins. Those two endings right there are iconic because they are not happy-go-lucky, typical slasher endings where they try to bullshit you that the killer is dead, when we know fucking well Michael's coming back. There's going to be some stupid-ass reason they're going to invent how he got out of this fortress of a basement that, if nothing else, Jamie Lee Curtis should have made sure was iron fucking clad and inescapable. And that just angered me. Just the thoughts that this is the jump-off point that we're going to have for the rest of this franchise, is the three girls still alive, Michael Myers presumably dead. So the next movie has no choice whatsoever to be exactly the same starting point. Again, Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers, which we've had time and time and time and time again. Let me play you a clip from a video that I did over a year ago when I first heard that Jamie Lee Curtis was announced back in this movie. After being really excited that they were going to be bringing back Michael Myers to a new generation, and they were wiping out all the sequels, they were getting rid of the sibling thing, and he wasn't going to have this family motivation. And then a couple of weeks later, they announced that Jamie Lee Curtis was actually going to be in the movie, and it was going to be a Laurie Strode-focused movie. Listen to what I had to say. But now that I hear this news that Laurie Strode and Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back, I can't help but be disappointed by it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm glad that she's going to come back to the slasher genre, but it just tells me that they can't figure out anything else to do but do the same thing that they have done over and over and over again. How many Halloween movies have we had where the story focus is Michael and Laurie Strode? Now we're trying to go into this new direction, and instead of going in a new direction, they go back to the tried and true formula, which is the same thing that we've done most of this series, and put Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers for another final confrontation. And while I was watching that ending, all of those fears that I had over a year ago came to fruition. And now we are stuck, tethered once again to Laurie Strode. This franchise has so much potential, especially now that you've retconned everything and you have severed the family motivation to go in any direction you want. You could make Michael do whatever you want. Put him wherever you want. Put whoever you want as his victims or his adversary, whatever you want to call it. You don't have to be tethered to Laurie Strode or Jamie Lloyd or any other family characters ever again. The doors have been kicked off for the Halloween franchise, and they draw it right back in and chain Michael Myers to Jamie Lee Curtis. Why? I love her character. And I'm not even necessarily saying that Laurie Strode herself should have died, but one of those Strode girls should have died to bring some extreme stakes to this ending. I actually think, not only because I didn't like her character, but for a crescendo of her character arc that they go for in this, I think this ending would have been much better. And again, I didn't write the movie, but just kind of to get my thoughts out there, what I think after seeing it twice. If at the scene whenever Michael goes up and grabs Judy Greer's foot as they're all trying to escape, or even before that, like whenever the granddaughter gets out of there, what if Michael Myers and Judy Greer got stuck into this little fire pit that she made? What if Judy Greer has to fight off Michael Myers so that the other two can escape? What if Michael Myers grabs Judy Greer just as they're getting away and pulls her down and is going to take her as a victim, and Jamie Lee Curtis has no choice but to lock them in? Something along that line, some kind of sacrificial moment for that character that now all of my training has come back to fruition. It was real. My mother was right. I have to save my daughter at no cost or at all costs whatsoever, even my own life. So I'm going to take off Michael Myers from the equation so that they can live. How much more powerful of an ending would that have been besides happy-go-lucky, me too, we all get away, the women stab to death, or stab the fuck out of the evil man and leave him to burn to death, that he's going to come back in the next movie. You could have given me anything else. And I know I've read versions of what the original ending was, which is basically the same exact thing, but not as cool. And I just think there's so much more potential for the ending of this movie that the doctor character and the ending is the two biggest things that dropped this movie for me. This humor throughout and a couple of the characters that didn't need to be there was somewhat inconsequential. I can forgive that. It's not like we don't get characters and dialogue like that in other franchises or other movies in this franchise too. I'm a Nightmare fan, for Christ's sake, guys. But those two big things, those two baffling script decisions for me is what held this movie back so much. And maybe you guys think my ideas are terrible. That's totally fair. You can put that down below if you think the version we got is way better than anything I thought they should do. That's totally fair. I'm not a scriptwriter. But the fact that I can sit minutes after the film and think of two things that quickly that if I was a scriptwriter, I could have said in a meeting and been like, hey, let's go this direction. And to me, it would have been so much better, obviously, for all the time that they had. 40 years of lessons learned of what not to do with a slasher movie in this franchise, and that's what you give us? Some weird-ass character twist that goes nowhere that you throw away with a head stomp 2 minutes later, and an ending that's wrapped up in a nice little bow that we as slasher fans know goddamn well is not going to stick to the next movie? Why even bother with that? That's why I thought it was pointless. If you're gonna try to make it sound like Michael died, at least have something happen with his death that makes it have some weight like a character death. Or don't bullshit us and have him be the winner like you did in the first movie and somewhat in the fourth movie, which is the two endings that fans hail the most. That's why, guys. That's my thoughts on the ending and my thoughts on most of the positives and negatives for this movie. Now, there's one other thing that I did want to talk about too, because this isn't really a positive or a negative, but I actually noticed this while watching this time. I really loved all the callbacks to the 1978 film, but I think it's very strange that this movie retconned the entire franchise, but kind of did a lot of the same things that every single movie almost in this franchise did. With the exception of Halloween Resurrection, that's the only film that I could not think of a callback in this movie. Every single film in this franchise, I can pick out a scene directly that correlates with one of these sequels. Halloween 1, the references are obvious. Halloween 2, the same exact ending, burning Michaels in a fire. Halloween 3, we get scenes with the kids walking away with the silver shamrock mask, which is cool. I like that one. Halloween 4, you get the boyfriend that has this weird little cheating love triangle that pisses off one of the main characters. Just like Rachel and her boyfriend Brady. Halloween 5, the scene with the two dim-witted cops. You get the cops in Halloween 5 with the fucking Goosebumps clown music. Halloween 6, a doctor that is evil and kind of orchestrating all of the events of Michael Myers and protecting him and guiding all of his actions. Halloween 7 or H2O? Obvious. I don't even have to get into that one. Resurrection, fair enough. Can't find anything for that one. Rob Zombie's Halloween. Even though it feels more like the H2O scene with the bathroom and the mother and her daughter, there's also a bathroom kill featuring Joe Grizzly Bitch that is a bathroom stall kill, which we get in this movie. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, the head stomp kill with the doctor. There is something directly taken or inspired by every single sequel in this entire franchise with the exception of Halloween Resurrection. And if you know one, please put that down below so that I don't have that little hole in my logic here. But it seems weird that to justify getting rid of this whole franchise just to kind of walk the same steps that those movies did. Story-wise and with those direct call-outs. Especially through with the ending. So that's something else that I noticed. But that's pretty much my thoughts on this movie, guys. And I hope I didn't leave anything out. There's a ton to discuss. But that is pretty much my justification for why my emotions went the way they did with certain things they did in this movie. Despite all of the awesome things that they did. And don't get me wrong, despite what a lot of you guys in the comment section like to say, I do like this movie. 3.4 out of 5 is a positive review. Me telling you to see it in theaters but save your money for the matinee just because there's some issues there is a positive review. The good outweighs the bad quite a bit in this movie. But at the end of the day, it is a disappointment for me because they had so much lined up for them to make this perfect or damn near. And the things that they do wrong with this, to me, are very obvious, amateurish mistakes that should never have made it through to the final cut of this film. With as many people that had to have been watching the scenes as they were shot, editing the movie, given passes on first, second, third, fourth cuts of this movie before they decided on their theatrical cut, how some of these things still landed up in our final product, it's unforgivable, in my mind. That is why the negatives have such a weight to them for me in this movie. Even though the positives far outweigh it, 3.4 out of 5 to me is a very fair rating for this movie, and it is a positive rating. Now the last thing that I wanted to discuss in this video really doesn't have anything to do with Halloween itself for the most part, so if you guys are done, by all means, the rest of this is just kind of me speaking to everybody as movie fans. I was shocked at the level of animosity that I received in my comment section because I did not give this a perfect score. I'm somebody that deals with trolls on almost an hour-to-hour basis. I really don't give a fuck what trolls say. But the amount of hate and negativity and just disgusting comments that were thrown my way simply because I gave this a positive but not perfect review in that spoiler-free review was shocking to me. The fact that Halloween fans, horror fans, do not have enough stability in their own opinion to be able to accept that there are other opinions out there, not just mine, but everybody else's, it disappointed me quite a bit. Now, the majority of you guys are great. Since Friday, I've had a lot more positive comments and positive feedback, even with people that disagree with my rating, but still respect it and still kind of like the conversation that we have in the comment section. All that is great, and I like to think that that is the majority of horror and Halloween fans out there. But the select few of you guys that just made my comment section toxic on that spoiler-free review, you're a fucking embarrassment for Halloween fans and horror fans and movie fans in general. One of the biggest comments that I got, to me, is hilarious, because I got it like 25 times, almost like it was copy and paste, was, this guy likes Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, so who gives a fuck what he thinks? Just as kind of a counterpoint for that, not only do I think that's ridiculous, and I say numerous times throughout that review of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 that I know full well I'm in like 2% of the fucking earth that likes this movie. And I fully will defend that to my death because I like the goddamn movie. I don't give a shit if I'm the only person on earth that likes it. But the fact that that alone suddenly discredits me, somehow I thought was bullshit and hilarious that you couldn't even really rationalize it. And one of the biggest things that makes it hilarious is a lot of my audience is the same for a lot of the reviewers in my little circle of YouTube. Probably more so is what I'll call my horror brother, Lee from Drum Dums. Lee and I are like best friends. We talk all the time. We got Scream Stream. We do the skits. Every single skit at the beginning of my Halloween reviews, Lee helped me with. Lee as Dr. Lemus. That's how close we are. But me and Lee disagree a lot on films. Lee gave this movie a perfect score. He still contends that there is absolutely no negatives with this movie. And you know what? If that's his legit thoughts, I am so happy for Lee that the movie he's been waiting for years delivered that amount of enjoyment for him. And I hope to God I get the same exact feeling when we finally get a new Nightmare on Elm Street film. But what's hilarious to me is I actually saw some of the same people that were shitting all over me and using Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 as their basis for that in the comment section of Lee's praise review, praising him on the fact that, yeah man, it's awesome, I'm glad you gave it the same, you gave it a perfect score, it's what this movie deserves. Guess what, guys?
You know my thoughts on Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I still love that movie. I just watched it again recently, a couple weeks ago. Every time I watch it, I like it even more.
So, liking Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 discredits my criticisms of the film because anybody that likes that movie can't have a relevant opinion on film. But if somebody praises the movie to the T, it's okay and it doesn't matter. Make that make sense, trolls. My point is, guys, I never put videos out there to try to change people's mind, except for maybe a few movies that I think are unfairly hated, like Rob Zombie's H2, that I would encourage people to give a second watch to, or to try to watch it with different perspective. But I never put out videos with the intent of, I want everybody to go from this video and adopt my opinion. I want everybody to walk around with the Cody Leach thoughts of this film. I put videos out there to celebrate movies, to talk about movies, and to create conversations with those that agree and disagree with me in the comments section. That is why I do this. So the fact that I can't even put my opinion out there about why and fully explain in detail with a almost 30-minute review why I love the things that I love and why I dislike the things that I dislike, and people can't accept that. And I've seen it on other people. It's not just my reviews, it's other people's reviews too. I've seen it on YouTube, I've seen it on Killer Flicks, I've seen it on Facebook. There is a crowd out there that if you do not agree 100% with them, you are wrong. Their opinion is right, everybody else can suck a dick. Those people, you true horror fans, you true Halloween fans, as you like to dub yourself, I got news for you. You're not a true fan of anything. Because if you can't look at something that you're you have a big amount of fandom for, and be honest with what you like and what you don't like and explain why, you're not a true fan of shit. Because if we weren't able to criticize the things that we love, if I wasn't able to criticize the things that I dislike and like about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, then I would be getting Freddy's Dead every single 2 years until the day I die. You would be getting Halloween 5 every single year until the day you died. Because if nobody could say anything negative about Halloween in order to be a true Halloween fan, when they fuck up, they're not going to know they fucked up because nobody's allowed to say anything. When we critique films, not only is it to explain our experience with a film, which is unique to every single person on this earth, but it's to give the filmmakers feedback so that they don't make the same mistakes again, or so they keep doing the things that they did correct in the next films. Halloween Resurrection. If nobody was allowed to say anything about what they disliked about Halloween Resurrection, 2 years after that, you would have got Busta Rhymes returning to karate kick that motherfucker in the face again. I digress. So that might have been a little bit long, maybe should have been its own video, but it was really kind of disgusting to me, just the climate of Halloween fans that kind of went on YouTube and Facebook and other places for about a good 36 hours once this movie dropped. And everybody except for the 83 or 87% of critics that praised it started getting their varying thoughts out there, from perfect Halloween sequel, best since, or even better than the original, all the way down to the person that walked out and thought it was just as bad as Resurrection, which I've seen maybe 1 or 2 people say, but still. This guy down here, his opinion is no more or less relevant than this up here that thinks that this movie is absolute perfection with no flaws. Everything in between as well. We're all movie fans, all of us have our own opinions. Learn to live with it. That's what makes being a movie fan so great, is that we can all see a film, get something different out of it, and hopefully have respectful and awesome conversations with each other about our fandom of film, no matter how big or small, for each individual movie. So with that, I bid you adieu.